And with us this morning for a new look at Donald Trump's life, Washington Post investigative political reporter Michael Kranish and senior editor Marc Fisher. They're the co-authors of the new book, Trump Revealed, An American Journey of Ambition, Ego, Money, and Power. It compiles the work of more than 24 Washington Post reporters, fact-checkers, and editors. Together, they examined Trump's childhood, his beginnings in real estate, and the international expansion of his branded empire. Trump Revealed is published by Scribner, an imprint of Simon & Schuster, a division of CBS. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Now, I should first point out, you spoke with Mr. Trump and interviewed him, right?
Yes, we spent, as a group, more than 20 hours with him. He was extremely generous and gracious with his time, despite all of his bluster against the media and against the Washington Post. He was quite forthcoming.
You go all the way back to his childhood to help reveal some of Donald Trump. What did you learn?
Well, we learned that, as he once said, he hasn't changed since second grade. Keep that in mind as you hear about some of the things that he did, such as throwing rocks at a toddler in the yard right across from his own home, pulling the pigtails of one of his classmates, getting into a physical altercation with a teacher that led to his father removing him from school and sending him off to a military boarding school.
In fact, in one of your interviews, he admits that he gave his music teacher a black eye.
Yeah, and it's possible that that was a bit exaggerated, but he certainly got into some kind of an altercation there, and he sees this as evidence that he was a mischievous, rambunctious kind of kid. People who were around him during that time saw him as quite a ruffian, really.
The most influential relationship in his life seems to be his relationship with his dad, his father, who was a very successful developer in New York, particularly in Queens and Staten Island. And Trump ultimately took that business into Manhattan. And can you talk about that relationship and that shift and what it seems to symbolize?
So he left Brooklyn and Queens. He wanted to come to Manhattan, and his father had said that you should never be a nothing in life. You should love what you do. So throughout Donald Trump's life, he had this onus on his shoulder to meet his father's expectations, that he would be something and a great something and to put his name on buildings, and that's exactly what he did. However, his father told him, don't go deeply into debt. Now, Donald Trump says he's the king of debt, so he did not follow his father's advice on that. And in fact, his father had to bail him out numerous times, give him money, loan him money.
But when he moved into Manhattan, that also was a turning point in some ways because he was then sued by the Justice Department, correct?
That's right. The U.S. Justice Department sued Donald Trump and his father by name for not renting to blacks at their properties in Queens and Brooklyn. This was one of the largest racial bias cases of its time. Donald Trump had to decide whether to fight this case or to settle. And one night he was in a nightclub in Manhattan, and he walks in there, and lo and behold, there's a man named Roy Cohn there. Roy Cohn was the lawyer for Joseph McCarthy of Army McCarthy hearings fame. And they got to talking, and Roy Cohn says, don't settle this case, fight like hell against the government. When they hit you, hit back 10 times harder. Trump decided to do that. In the end, he did have to settle the case, as it turns out, but he kept the Cohn philosophy even to this day about hitting back and hitting back 10 times harder.
What's Donald Trump's reaction to this book now?
Well, we don't know yet. We know that ahead of time, he told us repeatedly that he wanted a true, accurate, fair book, which was exactly our intent. But he also warned us again and again that he would sue us. And he has sued people in the past when they've written about him. And what tends to trigger his lawsuits is anyone who questions just how rich he really is. So he gives all kinds of numbers about how rich he is. $9 billion, $10 billion, $12 billion.
What do you think the real numbers are?
We don't know the exact number, but we have good reason to believe that it's considerably less, because he in his own depositions in lawsuits has said he essentially makes it up. What he does is he takes the actual value that any accountant would attach to his properties, and he multiplies that by what he feels in a given day. And so he says, look, my name has value, and that's true. His name does have value, but he then attaches a number. He says, you know, my name is worth $200 million on this project or $400 million on that project, and he inflates the value.
You do so much extensive reporting in here, too, so much about how your private life can reveal your public persona. What did he tell you about? Did he talk about, like, who is his best friend?
You know, I asked him about friendships because it's so important in the way we think about a president and his character. In Donald Trump's case, I was stunned when he said, you know, I don't really have friends in the way that most people do. If you think about friends as someone you go out to dinner with, he said, I don't have that. And it was a rare, quiet moment where he really didn't know what to say. Finally, he said, you know, it's my kids. If anyone, if I really got in trouble, the people I'd go to for help would be my kids.
You point out he's changed political parties 7 times, and you write that his practice of politics was transactional, not ideological. So what is Donald Trump's political ideology?
Well, he has pivoted time and again. He did say last week, I don't want to pivot because people need to see who I really am. What we found in our research with a team of reporters was clearly that he's spent a life practicing the pivot. As you mentioned, he's changed parties. He's been a Republican, he's been a Democrat, Reform Party candidate, and then again a Republican, and changed positions on many issues. On immigration, which he talked about recently, he had said Mitt Romney's plan to self-deport was crazy and maniacal. Those are his words, and he criticized Romney for losing the Hispanic vote. And now, you know, he's talked about forcing deportation, and then yesterday there was talk about, well, he's going back to something that Mitt Romney had talked about. So this is still something that he's still trying to figure out.
One last quick question. What does he read?
Nothing much, really. I asked him about, you know, are you preparing to be president by reading biographies of the great presidents? He said, you know, I've always wanted to read a biography of a president. I've never had the time. And when you go into it, and he turns out that he doesn't read books really at all, which is rather unique in the history of American presidential candidates.
Marc Fisher, Michael Kranish, thanks so much.